On a cold night in March 1964, in the Kew Gardens neighborhood of Queens, New York, a woman named Kitty Genoveses was walking home from her shift as a bar manager. She parked her car about 100 feet from her apartment building. She never made it inside. A man attacked her in the street, and her screams woke up dozens of nearby residents who came to their windows and looked down. The attack lasted over half an hour in 3 separate waves, as the attacker left and came back twice. Lights turned on. Curtains moved. A few voices shouted from windows to leave her alone. And then, one by one, the lights turned off again. Only one person called the police, and by the time they arrived, it was too late. The story that spread afterward claimed 38 people watched the whole thing and did nothing. That exact number turned out to be exaggerated by later reporting, and the full picture was messier than the headlines made it sound. But the core, disturbing fact held up under decades of scrutiny. A lot of people heard something terrible happening, and very few of them acted. The easy explanation is that something is broken in city life, that people had grown cold, indifferent, numb to their neighbors. 2 psychologists at New York University, John Darley and Bib Latané, didn't buy that explanation. They thought the answer wasn't about apathy at all. They thought it was about math. So in 1968, they built an experiment to test it. They put a college student alone in a room with an intercom, told them they were having a group discussion with other students in separate rooms, and had a recording play of another student appearing to have a seizure and call for help. Some participants believed they were the only other person who could hear it. Others believed there were several other people listening in at the same time. The recording was identical in every version. What changed was only the number of people the participant believed were also listening. When participants thought they were the only one who could hear the emergency, 85% of them left the room to get help, most of them within a minute. When participants believed 4 other people could also hear it, that number dropped to 31%, and many of those who did help took several minutes longer to move. The size of the crowd didn't make people more careless. It made them more paralyzed. And the mechanism behind that has a name: diffusion of responsibility. When you're the only witness, the weight of the entire outcome sits on you alone, and that weight is what moves you. When there are 10 witnesses, each person unconsciously carries roughly 1/10 of that weight. 10 people holding 1/10 of the responsibility each will often act slower than one person holding all of it. There's a second gear running underneath that one, and it's sneakier. It's called pluralistic ignorance. Picture a room full of people, and something ambiguous happens. Is that man on the sidewalk having a medical emergency, or is he just drunk? Before anyone acts, each person glances around at everyone else's face, checking for a reaction. And what they see is everyone else doing the exact same thing, standing still, looking mildly concerned, waiting. Each person reads the calm of the crowd as a signal that this must not be a real emergency, without realizing that everyone else is reading the exact same false signal off of them. A room full of people can convince itself nothing is wrong through nothing more than everyone waiting to see what everyone else does first. Now, if you're being honest with yourself for a second, some part of you just quietly assumed you'd be the exception. That if you'd been at one of those windows in Kew Gardens, you would have run downstairs. That if you'd been in that experiment, you'd have been the one who got up immediately. That reflex, that quiet certainty that you're not like the people who froze, is worth pausing on. Because in Darley and Latané's experiment, the students who didn't help weren't cruel or lazy. They were, by every account afterward, anxious, conflicted, and often visibly distressed while doing nothing. Freezing wasn't a character flaw. It was what the situation did to ordinary people. And it did it whether or not they thought of themselves as the kind of person who helps. So test the obvious way out. Ask yourself, but I'd noticed something was wrong, and I'd act. That's exactly what every bystander at every window that night likely believed about themselves too, right up until the moment they were standing at the window doing nothing. The intention to help and the actual act of helping are run by 2 different systems, and a crowd interferes with the second one without ever touching the first. You can want to help completely sincerely and still lose the internal argument about whether it's really necessary, whether someone else has already called, whether stepping in might make you look foolish if it turns out to be nothing. Every one of those thoughts sounds reasonable in the moment. Every one of them is also exactly what keeps a hallway full of people standing still. Try the next exit. Maybe you think the fix is obvious, just be more decisive, more confident, less prone to overthinking it. But confidence isn't the variable that moves here. In follow-up studies through the 1970s, researchers found that even people who scored high on measures of assertiveness and empathy showed the same drop-off in group settings. The effect isn't about who you are. It's about how many other people are standing next to you when it happens. Change the room, and the same person behaves completely differently. So here's where it gets useful instead of just unsettling. Researchers eventually found the one thing that reliably breaks the freeze, making it personal. Not shouting somebody call an ambulance into a crowd, where the responsibility scatters evenly across everyone and lands fully on no one. Pointing at one specific person. You, in the red jacket, call an ambulance now. The moment responsibility gets assigned to one identifiable person instead of diffused across a group, the paralysis breaks almost instantly. It's not that people needed to be told what to do. They needed the invisible math to change so that the weight stopped being divisible. Which brings it back to Kew Gardens. The truth that came out in later reinvestigations wasn't that 38 cold-hearted New Yorkers watched a woman die for entertainment. It was something closer to that intercom experiment, playing out across an entire street at once. Dozens of individual uncertain people, each one assuming somebody else already had it handled. Each one's inaction quietly confirming to the others that inaction must be the right call. Nobody decided to do nothing. The nothing assembled itself. One glance at a neighbor's dark window at a time. You're not immune to that math just because you know about it now. But you do have the one tool that actually works against it. And it isn't courage, it's specificity. Not waiting for someone to step up. Being the one who says a name, points a finger, assigns the job. The next time you're standing in a crowd watching something go wrong, the instinct to believe someone else has it covered is the same instinct that emptied that street in 1964. The question worth asking isn't whether you're the kind of person who would have helped. It's whether you're willing to be the one who breaks the silence first, so that everyone else standing there quietly waiting for permission finally gets it.